And there we are. Good morning, everybody. Congratulations. You made it through the week. Another amazing week of super good, amazing holiday food, all safe, high quality, feeding it to all of your guests that are probably going to be showing up pretty soon here over this holiday weekend. And if you're working in food safety and food quality, a lot of your work goes unnoticed because people just expect that food to be safe. But we know that's not the case. And we are here, Michelle and I are here to say thank you. We appreciate all that you do. So if you're new, welcome. This is the Food Safety Chat Live, and we are live every Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, where we live stream on LinkedIn and YouTube. And we talk about all things food safety with you. Because as Elena knows, good morning, Elena, this is not a lecture. This is not a presentation. This is a discussion. This is meant to be a forum for exchanging ideas around food safety because the consumer doesn't care. As far as they know, everybody, all the food, it's all the same. All they want to know is it safe or not? And if it's not, they avoid it. So the better we all do in food safety, the better everybody off is because we eat food too. So, listen to that introduction. So I brought in my Christmas tree here, guys. So I got my little Christmas tree here. That's about as festive, Michelle, as I get right there.
It's a great tree.
It is. It's very utilitarian. I put the so it's got the little LED lights on it that are twinkling there. It's got a little C battery pack there, and take it out of the box, plop it on the table. You can't see, but over here, kind of like right there, is an ornament I made as a kid in 1978.
Oh my!
Little ornament with my name on it.
Okay, nice.
And it's made with I put my name on it and the date, and it was like a glitter glue, and so you'd squeeze it out of a tube, and it was super messy, and you'd use it to write on stuff, and it's probably highly toxic, and there it sits. Good morning, Joe. So you've been super busy, Michelle. So Wollenzien is my guest here today, and you are the founder of InnoSafe Foods, and three episodes now of
yes just recorded our third episode yesterday, so I'm in now.
There you go, you're in deep now. And so you are of course the host of the Food Court, and at the end I'm going to put the link in there for your page for the Food Court so people can go check that out.
Thank you.
And I think part of this too, and this is something with the Food Safety Chat and what you're doing as well too, and other people out there, Dr. Darren with, Food Safety A-Hole and things that he's doing out there on that, is what's really cool is what's coming up here. So Jill and Tia, of course, with Catalyst too, is we're kind of building this community of people who are talking about food safety and sharing best practices and using it to build the field and improve things in the field and sharing that information because just through our backgrounds and our experience, we learn new things, and everybody has a unique perspective on stuff. And that's what's always really cool about this, being able to bring people on and get that extra little tidbit of information from them that's going to help you do your things better as well. So that's what kind of we're going to be talking about here today. So with that, everybody, please join Michelle and I for a drink of your favorite beverage. Ooh, look at that. Very festive too. Cheers.
Cheers.
Roast.
Friday and happy holidays to everybody. And good morning, Elena. I'm so happy to see you on here.
I'm glad Joe's here. So Joe thought that the show was yesterday. He was so excited for the show. He was looking for it yesterday, and he texted me. So
Where are you?
Glad you got the date down, Joe.
Thanks for showing up, Joe.
There we go. So one of the things that happens on the show, and I'll apologize for this in advance, Michelle, but of course you're going to have to go through it. Oh. This is the dad joke.
Yes.
It's time for the dad joke.
That's why I wake up on Fridays.
All right. Let's torture you with the dad joke.
Let's do
Michelle,
Ryan,
how did Darth Vader know what Luke got him for Christmas?
The Force was with him.
Good guess, but no. He felt his presence.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like it. I would love to know what your wife, like, what are her facial expressions when you're bouncing off these dad jokes? Like, does she say, go for it, or no, you leave that one behind? I mean,
She's a good filter for that, right? So it's kind of, there's three tiers to it. The first is, no, okay, that's not a keeper. The next one is the teenager eye roll, right? So,
oh, the
right. I
teenage.
say, oh, okay, all right, that's probably a good one. I'm going to keep that one. And then there's the kind of the Mrs. Krabappel laugh from Simpsons,
Oh,
right? So she does that, and I'm like, okay, I know that's a good one.
oh, that's great. I love it.
Oh, by the way, Cara, I'm sorry, I didn't mention you in the other podcasters out there. Cara Mickelson does a fantastic podcast as well with her venue, with, of course, with Chem Station. So make sure and check her out as well. So she does some good stuff too. So we picked for our topic today, Michelle, kind of it's something that grates on people who work in quality and food safety and gets us good fights and is the relationship, the brother sister fighty relationship sometimes between quality and operations, right?
And I'll tell you, it is. It is. I mean, that's a great way to put it. It is kind of a brother sister fight. I mean, we're all in the same family, aren't we?
Yeah, we're all trying to do the same thing.
Yes. Yep.
But you'll hear this expressed, in various phrases. And part of this is, the way I look at it is, we tend to minimize what other departments do. Oh, sales. What sales do? All they do is go out and take clients to dinners and have a good time. And then they get a sale and everybody goes, yay. And they get a big bonus and must be nice to be in sales. Procurement, kind of the same thing in procurement. Vendors come and schmooze them and they go to trade shows and they buy stuff and spend all kinds of money. And then I have to deal with the out of spec stuff. Man, I wish I worked in procurement. Those guys have it great. It works for us too, right? In quality, what we always hear, everybody knows, is quality, right? They're just all, they cross their arms and they're just no, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And if quality had their way, they'd just shut down the company. That's what quality wants to do. And of course, in quality is like, well, operations, all operations wants to do is just shovel product out the door and they don't care. They don't, those operation guys, right? That's kind of the general.
Yeah.
We're on a German theme here, by the way, with the Armentrouts and the Wollenziens. That's kind of the zeitgeist of the area that we're talking about here today. And pretty much what I've seen, what's cool about what we do and working in consulting is we get to see lots of companies and play with lots of different things and help lots of different people, which is awesome. And you see this pattern everywhere, don't you, Michelle? It's pretty much the same in every company.
It is.
Why? Why do you think that is?
I think it's we're under the same family. We have the same goals, but we don't speak the same language. And there's a miss there with the language. It's so fascinating to me because I did work for a large corporation with, over 100,000 employees. And there was a lot of moving parts and they did a great job. But one thing I learned right away was, I think, operations has their language and one way to put it, it's the English language, right? Everybody's got to speak English, right? And with all of these other areas of the business, we all have to learn how to speak that language. And so when we're not speaking the same language, it's really hard to influence and build trust. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. And a good way to look at this is everybody has pride in what they do and they want to do a good job. And understanding that's really important is what does a good job mean to them? Because there's that famous saying in quality, which is be careful what you measure because you're going to get it. Right. So if in that company, the operations group is set up as part of that culture to be in opposition to quality, which is, all right, your job in operations, and this is what your bonus is based on, is cases per hour and shipments fulfilled and product. And that's what they get their review on, and that's what they get their bonus on. Guess what they're going to do?
Yep.
And if you set those groups up in opposition and say, okay, quality, it's your job to stop the operations group from sending out bad stuff, right? You're creating that environment. You're creating a system that is guaranteed to have conflict. And between operations and quality, it needs to be an and, not an or. We want to make orders, and it needs to be happy customers. One of the sayings I like is that within a company is marketing is there to bring in new customers and say, look at all the amazing things we make and all these products. And then as consumers, we know this, right? It's like, oh, cool, I'm going to try that new product. And then we try it. It's quality's job then to make sure that that product meets expectations. As we talk about it here, I have an expectation for this cup of coffee in my morning. There's a flavor profile I'm looking for. And if it's not right, I'm going to complain, maybe, or I'm just going to go get something else. And poof, right? All of that work we do up front to acquire those new customers. It's extremely expensive to acquire a new customer, but keeping them is super hard. And we need to work together with those two groups to make sure that that's understood. And I think part of that is making sure that those objectives within the company, everybody should have quality objectives in their organization, procurement, operations, all of the different groups, R&D, you name it, that impacts the quality of the product need to have that in their objectives. Quality is not a department, it's a mindset. It's how your company operates, isn't it?
It is. And I know in retail, there's a big conversation around operational excellence in operations. And really, if operational excellence is fully, if it's working, food safety and quality are in operational excellence. Yes. And a lot of times operational excellence is looked at, the KPIs don't include food safety and quality. Mm-hmm. Maybe quality will be in there, and there might be some food safety KPIs, but they're really not integrated to where the operation is functioning safely, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's where it's finding that, how to merge the two, and it's done. It's not that nobody's doing it. It's done, but it's really the mindset of the leadership to embrace it and to communicate that.
Right. So a good example of something that there's two things on the food safety and food quality side. We'll talk about this a little more too.
Sure.
Is complaint rates, for example, should be pretty much in everybody's objectives. The goal is to have happy customers. Yeah. And that should be in anybody who touches complaints should have a piece of that. So operations, QA, R&D, procurement, you name it. All these different groups have an active role in complaints. But we push it over on quality and say, well, we have high complaints. We have a quality issue. And then they look at us and go, well, you're the quality department, therefore it's your fault. No, it's I didn't make the product. I didn't make the out of spec stuff. I didn't have the misaligned labels. All of that stuff, and working together as a team to work on those things. And part of this, I think there's something, Michelle, that really needs emphasizing here as well. This is something that I always teach my managers. And I think a lot of quality people get confused between these two things and you've mentioned this too, is there's food safety and there's food quality. They're different.
Yes.
Food safety is easy from the standpoint of it's a pretty clear-cut decision-making process. Oopsie, we put an unlabeled allergen in the product. Recall, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have all the mechanisms and systems to manage that and hopefully prevent that from happening again in the future. Food safety. Food quality is a business issue. Underline it. If you learn one thing here today, guys, going through the chat, food quality is a business issue. And it's our job in the company to be the representative of the consumer. We need to understand exactly how that product functions and what the consumers care about. A lot of times, and you see this too in big companies, Michelle, you've worked in them as well, is we're really good at navel gazing and looking internally about the what the product should be. And the example I like to use on this is that I had this conversation when I was at White Wave with Silk Soy Milk, is I never had a consumer complaint where they said, hey, Brian, I bought some Silk Soy Milk in this store or whatever, and I think your pH is a little out of spec. Right? No, nobody does that.
No.
They'll email and say, this product tastes weird, or
Yes.
something like that. And then you got to go back and figure out why it tastes weird. What was that thing that consumer didn't like, and figure out why that happened. Now, the quality side is a business decision. And within quality, the better you understand how the consumer perceives that product and what their driving levers are with that product, the better you're going to do. I work with a beverage company. I'm sure that some of the people here on the chat here as well that I worked with, and they produced a plant-based beverage. And it was absolutely clear cut with the complaints, what the consumers did not like in that product. If the texture was too thick or if the flavor was off.
Uh-huh.
Oh, would we hear it if those two things were wrong? So I would constantly, every chance I got, I would hammer home those two things, that the texture needs to be correct. So we were constantly over the shelf life of the product, making sure that the texture was correct and the flavor. So we did taste panels and everything. We watched that super, super close. And as a result, we reduced our complaints fivefold in that company. We got them down to a nice level of around 5 complaints per million. And we kept it there because the consumers understood. We understood what it was. And this also helps with your decision-making process. So this gets back to our discussion today, is if, for example, flavor is one of those key drivers for your product, and you understand that, and you're putting metrics and systems in place to control that, and operations has a product that tastes kind of weird, it's like, oopsie, we added a little bit too much, we'll say salt, right? Something easy to detect. The product's a little too salty. Now you can go through and have a discussion to figure out from a business standpoint if releasing that product is going to be okay or not. Mm-hmm. And if the organization now understands, so you come with the data and you can say, okay, in the past when we had flavor issues, our complaints pretty much tripled relative to that product. If we release this product and we tick off our consumers, that's what's going to happen. What is the ramification to the business? And now that can escalate in the organization, and your senior leadership team can make a decision and say, okay, if we don't ship this, we're going to miss orders. If we don't ship this, we've got a brand new product launch that's going to fail, and it's going to cost millions of dollars in marketing if we do that. Let's release the product and we'll work through the complaints. Brian, I need you to watch that really closely and work with those consumers and really, really track that. That's a very different approach, because now the organization understands when those complaints do this, that they're not coming to me and saying, Brian, why are your complaints so high?
Right.
And I'm saying, well, we released some product that was kind of out of spec. Well, why'd you do that, right? So now it becomes a blame Brian exercise. In reality, it's an organizational decision. And a lot of times, Michelle, and this is long-winded, I apologize, is we're too insular in that decision-making product. And we'll sit back and we'll cross our arms again like this and say, no, that product is out of spec and it cannot do that.
Right.
And that may not be the right decision for the business at that point in time.
Right. No, you're right. Customer complaints. I mean, what do we say? Feedback is a gift.
Oh God, yeah.
And if we're not receiving that gift and following it, we're putting ourselves out of business. Mm-hmm. If that's how we want to run the business, and just blame Brian because something's out of spec, right? So I agree.
It helps you work with the operational group to determine what's important and what's not. I had a product in the past where there was a sleeve wrapper that went around like a little container, and the machine that did that process was really, really old. And sometimes the bottom underneath where the glue would match up would be a little out of alignment. And the operations group and the quality group fussed over that all the time, trying to make that machine run correctly. And there was all kinds of posters there of how that should line up. And I would walk out on the plant floor and there would be all the product that would be stacked up because they would have to rerun it back through that sleever to try and make it look better and all that stuff. And I remember sitting down with the operations group and saying, guys, it doesn't matter. I have never had a complaint for that. Zero. I have been here for 5 years. I've had zero complaints for that. No consumer has ever contacted us and said, "What the hell's up with your
Right.
packaging on the bottom? That misalignment is terrible." Right? We were wasting all kinds of energy and resources on that when we should have been focusing on other things. That's
Yeah.
another example of a product where texture was super important. Texture. Focus on the texture. Don't. There's good enough in those areas, right? And that was an example for me of a good enough.
Right. Yes.
And that's and you'll see. Hopefully, everybody's noticing this here too, right? Is I'm approaching this conversation today from the quality side, right? Of we need to be flexible, working with operations, but also knowing where the line is too. And so, from your experience, Michelle, you come into from the operations side too, with your background.
I
So,
do.
why don't you give us a little perspective on how you would view that from an operational perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting. I started out in operations and moved over to food safety, and it it was definitely taking on a different perspective.
Mhm.
And so sitting in the meetings, I'm now wearing a different hat, which, by the way, it took me a long time to get into those meetings.
Mhm.
Once I was out of operations, it took me years to get back into those meetings, from a food safety and quality side. But
Yeah.
um, for me, it was really listening to their pains, right? Understanding what their pains were. And also, you got to use the data,
Mhm.
um, right? And you've got to tell the story with that data, because in that data are customer complaints. There's
Yeah.
returns, right? People returning product. And now you've got social media where everybody will air a grievance. And so you have to, whether it's accurate or not, somebody stubbed their toe and now they're mad at the gallon of milk,
Yeah.
right? And so, but taking all of that into account and being able to tell a story with all of that data that makes sense to the operations leaders, and not just the operations leaders, but all of the other stakeholders
Yeah.
in that organization, because facility maintenance carries a lot of weight. We all need them, and they are overloaded. So it's really being able to tell the story with the data and with everything that we have that is presented with us, and how that affects each area of the business to drive improvements.
Yes. Well said. And I always look at the business this way: is every manufacturing facility is always the same. There's really only four steps. There's receiving, you bring stuff in. There's processing, you do some stuff to that stuff you brought in. Then there's kind of the packaging function, and then the shipping and logistics piece of it. And each of those things is an independent process that needs to be thought of independently. We think of it as one continuous process. It's not. It is people handing off things to the next person in the step. And one of the rules in quality is as you go through those steps, your costs increase 10x. So if you can catch mistakes at receiving, beautiful. If you don't, it's not going to improve the product. If you bring in low quality milk, you're going to make bad cheese. There's nothing the cheesemaker can do about it. It's crappy milk. That's the core process for the operation. That's how we all make money. That's why we all have jobs. Everybody else in the organization supports that process. So quality, we kind of come in on the top of that, and we support those different functions within there so they can do their job correctly. That also works for, to your point, Michelle, procurement, HR, logistics, maintenance. Everybody within that supports that core process, and you need to understand your role in that manner, that you're there to help. And if that process doesn't work and you don't put amazing product out the door and fill orders, you're going to be out of business really fast. So quality doesn't exist in a bubble, even though sometimes people think we should be, right? And that's completely wrong. The reason those operational groups would exclude people is that relationship, right? Of, okay, if quality hears something in that meeting that they shouldn't hear, they're going to shut down the line or what have you and do the no thing. That's a trust issue. Right?
Yes. Yes, I agree. There's is an interesting scenario that I went through when there would be new store openings. So we would have meetings with all of the construction, design, procurement, operations, facility, food safety, and we would talk about, especially if there's a remodel, which means part of this store is going to have a giant gaping hole in it
Oh,
while we are in full production.
mhm.
Okay. So, sitting in those meetings, everybody was there and they were weekly meetings. But when we left the meetings, there was no, I think everybody went with their own little individual marching orders,
Mm,
and there was no alignment, there was no synergy. And I found that inserting myself as that liaison to recap and define the roles, to make sure that if we do have a gaping hole somewhere in a wall, what are we doing to make sure that it's covered, right? Temporarily covered, and
right?
keep the operations going overnight. And so it was very interesting process to sit through. But that's really where I learned that there's a lot of people in a lot of different departments that sit together to support each other with the greatest intentions, but it just ends there. So
Yeah.
that's where we find in the execution part, that's where the gaps start to crack, I guess. You get to see the cracks. So, for me, it was really important to step in and just be that communication liaison between all of the different stakeholders to make sure that we were all understanding what this means, that the construction people understand that when you knock a hole in that wall, whatever's on the outside is coming inside.
Yeah.
And so you have to educate. People that knock down walls don't really pay attention to, they just know they've got to knock down a wall,
Yeah.
right? So,
Well, no, it's the local contractor who's
exactly.
coming in to do that.
Yeah,
And you hear that a lot of times when you talk with contractors in food plants is, hey, what you doing? Oh, I'm an electrician. Oh, awesome. What do you know about food safety? What? No, I'm an electrician. Yeah,
right,
but you're an electrician in a food plant.
right.
What you do has a big impact, and they're just looking at it again. And you're absolutely right from their perspective. So change is, we would love it from an operational and quality standpoint if everything always stayed the same. No, never happens. Never happens. And you wouldn't want that anyway, because it's back to the core process is we want to create cool things and cool products for people. And that means that the R&D, marketing, and the innovation groups are figuring out cool new stuff.
Oh,
And that introduces chaos into the process. And that needs to be managed. If you've ever worked in a company with a really good project manager, oh man, they are worth their weight in gold.
oh,
Prior company that I was working with, one of my clients had an amazing project manager, and he was able to shepherd and manage all these different competing interests and activities and try and get things over the finish line. And part of that is knowledge, right? And
yeah,
understanding. We hate it, and I know I hate it, when you walk into a plant and there's been a change and you're like, what's that?
yeah.
It's like, oh, we bought a new piece of equipment or whatever.
Oh,
You're like, okay, now you got to try and figure out what's going on. And that's extremely frustrating. And that's because you weren't involved in the process from the beginning.
yep,
And to your point, it's probably because you didn't introduce yourself into that process. Right?
right.
Nobody knew to invite you. Sometimes you got to kind of push your way in, don't you?
Oh, you do. And you have to be able to give feedback and you have to be able to receive feedback, and you do have to be able to assert yourself diplomatically. And I have learned that the hard way. I went through a lot of emotional intelligence courses, and and all of the leadership courses that we all go through, and they're great, but sometimes you just learn trial by fire.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned. But you have to insert yourself, because most people don't sit there and go, well, what about food safety? What about quality? You have to say, hey, I would love to be a part of looking at that equipment before it's bought, so that we can discuss the functions with the manufacturer there, ask the questions, look at the cleanability, watch it being assembled, disassembled. And so being there, not after, not even remotely, where money has been spent, because once that money gets spent, it's full force ahead. So being there at the conceptual stage is so important.
Yep. And really that's a key thing that I've been doing in my business, is talking with companies around this risk assessment stuff that I've been talking about a lot.
Yep.
Is I go and I talk with these different departments. Imagine that. And to your point, let's use the engineering example. If the engineering group in the company is charged with setting up a new line and speccing out new equipment and figuring out what the layout's going to be, and it works the same with the convenience store as well, right? All right, we're going to knock this wall out. We're going to add this addition in. We're going to have additional capacity. They're looking at it strictly from their perspective. The engineering group is matching everything up and saying, okay, based upon the fill speed rate and the bottles per hour, and okay, I'm going to have a buffer table here. And they're figuring out all these things to make that line flow as efficiently as possible. That's what they're concerned about. They're not concerned about allergens. They're not concerned about cleanability. They're worried about bottlenecks in the process and floor footprint. And does the plant have the capacity, the electrical, the water supply, all this fun stuff that they look at? We need to be involved in that process. To your point, Michelle, we'll reemphasize this up front and say, okay, great, fantastic, guys. Quick question. Who's looking at this from a cleanability standpoint? Who's cross-referencing this with the 3A standards? Is this equipment even allowed to be used in the US? Where are we looking at buying this equipment? How are we doing qualifications for this equipment? Are we doing it at the manufacturer, or are we going to actually have to qualify it when it's here? And introduction, because now you're talking their language.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't ever do this, please. Don't do this. Well, according to 21 CFR 117 subpart G and SQF 11 point blah, 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 we are required to do this, right? They're going to look at you like, oh, what?
Yeah.
No, it's written down. You have to do this. And then you leave the room and they're like, blah, 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 right? You're not speaking their language, right? One of the best things we had in my past is, so at White Wave, I had 4 different divisions within quality. And one of those divisions was tech services. And that group's purpose was to work with the engineering group, to work with the plants. If we had a big quality issue, they would get involved from a equipment standpoint. And they became very, very knowledgeable. And they would work really closely with the engineering groups and the change management teams. And as a result of that, they got a ton of respect, because now it was very different. If there was an issue going on, the plants would call tech services and say, hey, we need some help here. This equipment's not quite getting cleaned correctly. Can you send out this guy to come out here and help us? And it's like, perfect. That's exactly what you want.
Yep. A great example is one of the retailers I worked for. They bought a deli cheese case from Germany. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so it was just one case, and it was just to, try it out, see how it works. And do we want to buy more across the company? Light bulb goes out, 45 days to get a light bulb. Okay. So part of that is not even food safety and quality. It's, was there a plan for replacement parts? And we would there was this ongoing joke, it's on a boat, it'll be here in 45 days. So, and if it wasn't, it might be 90 days. So for 90 days, there was a beautiful case with beautiful product in it, with zero lighting, and so that is one of those, you got to get everybody involved, not just the people that say, oh, I love that case, let's get it, but is it cleanable, and where are those replacement parts? And if those are replacement parts that could affect food safety, where we have foreign material possibility or contamination, what is plan B if we can't get those parts, right? So it's always important to insert yourself.
Yes. And even if you're aware of that, now it's like, oh, crap, we need a bunch of parts here in a warehouse. Now you're tying up capital. Now you're tying up money in parts that are sitting on a shelf in case you need them. Companies don't like to do that unless they have to. Now look at the political side. Trade wars, tariffs, right?
Yeah.
Now that light bulb is 3 times the price and you can't get it for 6 months.
Right.
Because of the tariffs or whatever.
Oh, geez,
you need to be thinking about these things and looking at this holistically, right? Making yourself part of the team, realizing that you're part of that core process. And to your example, retail, food service, restaurants, it's all the same.
It is.
So part of this too, and there's something that I learned through a lot of pain. So kind of like what you were talking about too, Michelle, is, there's book knowledge, but the reality is if you're going to be successful in quality, you got to be where the action is and you have to be on the floor. And there's some lessons that I learned, and I talk about this in my book. There's a whole section. There's 4 sections in my book. There's a whole section that says all I talk about in here is mistakes that we make in quality around how we manage things. And number one is we think that documentation does stuff. No, it doesn't. We think that if we write something longer that it's going to happen. No, not going to happen. We think that if we say you must have a food safety culture that it's going to magically appear. No, it's not. We think that if we write things down that that's how people are going to do them. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. Anybody who's worked in quality for any period of time knows that if you go out on the floor and you start barking orders and yelling at people and you walk away, people are going to be like, what was that? It's like, whatever. Right. Yeah. And then we think that if we yell louder, that somehow that's going to work. And eventually people get frustrated and quit. And they're like, nobody wants to do what I want them to do. Well, how are you working with them? How are you persuading them?
Yes.
How are you influencing them? How are you showing them that what you're teaching them will allow them to do their job better? Their job.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's their job. And I see Joe has a comment here. As the site food safety manager, it's important to build bridges, build allies amongst the other departments, the old honey and vinegar concept. So true. And you really, for me, I went backwards in the sense that I had my allies around me. I had my peers. I had the facility, the design team, procurement, and even operations. But I didn't have leadership behind me at the time. And so I had to really work on building that relationship and that trust with leadership, because they are the ones that determine the culture. They make the decisions. They're also going to welcome me into those meetings or they're not. Yeah. And so sitting down and having those hard conversations, talk about risk, for me to have to sit there with, one of the owners of the company, large company, and say, hey, look, this is where we are and this is where we need to be. And putting that communication, delivering that communication in a way that I know that person's going to understand it, right? Like some people love graphs, some people love charts, very visual people. And then some people say, I can't. For me, it can be overwhelming. But leadership likes easy, red, yellow, green.
Yeah.
Red is bad. Yellow, it could be bad, and green, we're good. And so just handing over a visual where you see lots of red, you can't it's a visual right there. There's no having to dig through anything, then having those conversations, but knowing how to deliver that is really, where you're going to get the buy-in or not, and build those relationships. So
absolutely. So false beliefs that we have in quality is, documentation does things. That's not the real world. The real world is training takes place on the floor.
yes.
And that relationship between the supervisor and his new employee, that's where the real learning happens.
Mhm.
It's not a PowerPoint sitting up in a classroom at the end of a shift where everybody's tired and dirty and I just want to go home. No one is going to be impressed by a food safety presentation that says last year 50,000 people in the United States experienced foodborne illness with an estimated cost and financially of over $50 billion. Of those illnesses, here are the leading causes, right? Again, right? No, right? Make it relatable. The floor is where these things happen. And with that, understanding that relationship of how new employees are trained on the floor, that's where you need to focus. Is when that supervisor is working with that new employee, what are they teaching them? How are they teaching them to do things? And especially critical around that core process. And that was one of my ahas that I learned, which I really don't see a whole lot of in what we do, but it needs to be more of it. So I'll bore everybody with this a little bit. Is we're really, really good in quality at documenting how things go right. Step 1 through 20, right? Pull out this part, wash it in the COP tank, right? And end process. Well, we know in what we do things go right all the time? Hell no. They go wrong all the time, but we don't document that. We don't tell the team what to do when things go wrong. We tell them what it should be when things go right. And then when things go wrong, they go, oh shit. Hey, supervisor. Yeah. And then you come over, Michelle. I'm like, hey, I got a problem here. And then you have to make a decision on the fly as the supervisor. And it's like, okay, what's going on? Yeah, my machine's making a weird noise, Michelle. What do I do? And you're looking at your watch and going, all right, it's only 1 hour to the end of the shift. Mm-hmm. I want to go home. If I shut down the line, I'm not going to hit my production targets for the shift. Plant manager is going to be upset. You know what? The second shift supervisor is pretty much an a-hole anyway. And then you're going through all this in your head. And then you tell me, keep going. And I'm like, okay, boss, because you're the boss. I'm maybe going to go through that process 2 times, maybe 3 times with you before I stop even mentioning it.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden we have defective product in the warehouse. And as the quality manager, I'm like, whoa, what happened? And then I've got to try and figure it out. Are people going to come forward and tell me that story? No. No, they are not. So I spend a whole lot of time when I'm working with companies on quality systems, asking them what they do when things go wrong. So simple example I use is milk receiving. Let's say that the target for milk receiving is 40 degrees. And by God, that's what we will be. We will always be below 40 degrees. Well, Michelle, milk comes in one day at 41. Right? Mm-hmm. So this conversation takes place. Hey, Michelle. Yeah, what's up, Brian? Yeah, I'm receiving this milk and the temperature's a little warm. What is it? 41. Right? Then you start peppering me with questions. Where did you take your sample? Did you retest it? Are you using the right thermometer? Right? No, it's 41. It's too hot. Shit. Is that really an issue? Right? So what happens in the organization? It goes up the chain of command in the plant. The plant manager gets the co-op on the phone and says, hey, idiots, you sent me milk that was warm. It's 41 degrees. You're going to shut down my plant. I bought that milk because I got to make some cheese. I can't reject it. Why in the hell did you send me milk that was warm? Well, what's the temperature? 41. Really? You're worried about 41? Yeah, our spec's 40. Well, we did have a bit of a cooling issue with one of our cooling plates, but it's all fixed. So you don't have to worry about it now. Everything's good. So now the quality manager and the plant manager are doing this, right? The quality manager has a spec that the milk needs to be below 40. Now you got milk at 41. And the plant manager is having this conversation with the plant manager. The plant manager's like, oh, come on, Michelle, really? Yeah. You know that milk is fine. It's 1 degree. Everything else is fine. The pH is great. It looks fine. There's no weird smells. the titratable acidity is everything else is in spec. It's just 1 frickin' degree high. Are you really going to shut down my plant for 1 degree? And then you relent and say, well, yeah, you're right. The word goes down to the floor, receive the milk. What's that receiver do? You already know. The receiver goes, oh, quality means nothing. We don't follow the rules. We only follow the rules when it's convenient. But when stuff is out of spec, we bring it in anyway. And that quality manager just had their authority undercut. Now, the next time the quality manager tries to do something, everybody goes, yeah, right, whatever. Yeah.
You lose credibility.
Right. And now the quality manager's like, okay, I need to double down and be extra tough now because people aren't listening to me. Well, that's why. So to your point, green, yellow, red, you have these conversations in advance of the problem. That's the problem. We try and solve all this shit on the fly.
Yeah.
Absolute wrong time to try and fix it. Okay, guys, let's talk about milk spec for milk coming in. And you do this as a management group. Right now, you're not going to go rogue and set up your own standards. Corporate's going to be involved on both sides of the company, whatever. All right, so now you're doing the milk example for the temperature, Michelle. And you say, okay, less than 40, awesome, we love it. Between 41 and 45, Michelle, are we going to have a problem? Maybe, depends. Okay, well, what are we going to do? Well, we need to review the data, the specs, the background. And as a management team, we need to decide if we're going to receive that milk or not. Okay, got it. Let's write down all those things. So if the milk's 46 or higher, are we going to bring the milk in? No. We're going to have microbial growth. We're probably going to have some proteolytic activity going on in there. Those little enzymes chomping at the proteins in the milk and breaking it down early. Bad news. That's always bad news. Complaints are going to go up. No, we can't do that. Cool. Now fast forward the scenario. Milk comes in at 46. It's just slightly out of the yellow zone. Do we bring it in? That same scenario we just went through happens again. And now the plant manager is talking with the quality manager, and it's a very different conversation.
Right.
So the plant manager says, well, the milk's really not that far out of spec. It's only 46. And now the quality manager can be like Columbo and say, I'm a little confused here. We've already agreed how this works. Remember that?
Yeah.
Milk at 46 is going to have these problems. And you signed off on this.
Yeah.
I can't agree to that. Tell you what, if you want to push this issue, let me get the VP of QA on the phone and you can explain to him why you think this milk is now good.
Right. I
never had that conversation because they were not stupid enough to call me in that situation.
Yeah.
And the plant manager would be like, okay, yeah, you're right. And then because you're solving the problem in advance. People don't do that. What can go wrong and what will we do if it goes wrong?
It's such a great point, though. You're right. And that should be part of the conceptual phase throughout the phase, right? At each phase of this product development, what if it goes wrong? What if it goes wrong here, here, here? And having those contingency plans. You're right. It's reactive as usual. And that's when we start getting the headbutts and we can lose credibility with that as well. When we start, if we don't have a plan in place, then we are setting ourselves up and losing credibility. So
yeah. And now, so this comes full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning of our chat. We are now part of the team.
Yes.
We are now helping to make business decisions. It's not being pushed off on quality to blame later if everything blows up and we have issues. And we have a quality problem, which always irritates the hell out of me because I didn't make the product.
Right.
You made the product. We have an out of spec problem. Why did that happen? It's really easy to say, hey, quality, will you approve this? And then they forget about it and everybody moves on and you hope that there's no issue. As we were preparing for our chat here on Monday, there's a saying, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna write this down. And it's this: quality is the physical manifestation of the consumer standard in the company. So now I think based on what we're talking about today, people understand what that means.
Yep.
We are the voice of the consumer in the facility. And we're looking at our decision-making process in those two buckets, quality and safety. And understanding that our role then is to help predict, figure out what's going to go wrong. How can we help those things not to happen versus reactive? The example I use in this too, Michelle, is quality reports. Hey, here's the quality report for the last 3 quarters. Great.
Thanks.
So everybody knows what happened the last 3 quarters. We already know these things happened. What are you doing with that data to extrapolate and predict issues? Hey guys, we're seeing a complaint rate going up on microbial defects in this product. We're seeing the trend starting to do this. Let's start investigating that to figure out why now instead of later. Let's put together a team on this and start doing some sanitation investigations around that. That's where you provide value to the company.
Yes. I used to follow distribution trucks because we were having quality issues. And I was determined that this was coming, it was a transportation issue. So I would learn the routes and I'd wait for them. And sometimes there's usually a 5-hour window, just depending. But I'd wait and it would be in the middle of the night. And sometimes it would be in the middle of the day in summer, but you would see, I'd watch them unload. And in July, you've got pallets sitting on hot cement, refrigerated product, frozen product, and it's sitting there for 45 minutes to an hour.
Right.
And, but the people inside don't understand that it's been sitting out there, and they can't understand why it's coming in at 48 degrees, 50 degrees. And so just being able to provide that information, and then of course, meeting with the vice president of the distribution company and watching their procedures, following it all the way, we were able to really pull that a lot tighter into, let's not leave this sitting on the parking lot for 45 minutes to an hour before it comes in the door. But and so those are those areas where you have to volunteer to be that person to find. That there's the gap, and nobody can find the gap. Right?
Super important. That's where you really learn what's going on. Is you actually have to go out and watch.
Yes.
And ask questions.
Yes.
Because to your point, if at that convenience store there's a delivery that comes from Cisco, number one is that guy can't wait around, and he's not going to stock it for you. And he puts it out back, Austin, Texas, in the middle of summer. Oh my God. And there's only one person in that store. They can't leave the front. That's a big problem.
It is. Yep.
Yeah, you want to get mad as a quality person, especially if you work in any type of like a refrigerated product or things like this. Go check out the temperatures in the cases at a retailer.
Oh.
Right? People are opening and shutting those things all the time. Maybe they're keeping temperature, maybe they're not. And then you're getting complaints because now your shelf life isn't as long as it should be. You need to look at these things. There's things in your control and things beyond, and you need to figure out ways to mitigate those risks.
I think that's one of the biggest silent battles in retail is, the merchandisers and the departments, bigger is better. Build these beautiful displays and they will come. But those beautiful displays are blocking airflow with events. So we've got product out of temperature, and it's like you really need to bring your product down. So then you have to look at the waste numbers, right? What are you wasting? Or now let's look at the customer complaints, right? The ones that are sitting on top that are not getting that airflow. Those are the products that are, they're not going to be, maybe not a food safety problem, but definitely a quality issue. Yeah. And so, but that is like the number one silent battle between ops, quality, and food safety is build it and they will come. And we're like, oh, just take it down about 3 stories so we can get that cold air going.
Exactly. Yeah, you have these hidden things out there that can impact. And
Yep.
that's part of what's fun about what we do is we get to look at all kinds of different stuff
Yep.
and think about it and apply rationales and logic to figure out what's the best way to do this. And sometimes it may not be ideal, but you have to kind of work through that and figure these things out. So we're kind of getting to the 5-minute mark here, Michelle. So let's kind of bring the conversation up. We've covered a ton of territory here. What would you like to leave people with today?
Oh gosh. I would say get to know your teams. And I mean, get to know your teams outside of your department and spend time with them. One thing I really enjoyed doing was meeting with my facility maintenance teams wherever I worked on a monthly or quarterly basis, whatever the need was, to educate them on risk.
Yes.
Right? So we get these audits and facility maintenance scrambles. Oh my gosh, we don't have the budget for all of this. And they kind of shut down. They just shut down. We can't do this. No, we're not replacing this. We can't do that. So meeting with your teams and prioritizing by risk makes their job easier. And so there are different stakeholders. Meet with them all, meet with IT, meet with, there's your learning and development, meet with all of them and let them know that you are a resource. So when training materials being put together, are we hitting on some of those critical pieces? When it comes to IT, what happens when something goes down? What does that look like? So for me, it is just insert yourself. Get to know your teams, what they do, what their challenges are, how that applies to food safety or quality, and start thinking of those contingency plans that you brought up. That is such a, it's so true though. So that's what my parting words are.
That's good. And there's an important point in there. People love to talk about themselves.
Yes.
Go and talk with the maintenance department and say, hey guys, your role in the company is just like mine. We're here to support the manufacturing process. How do you guys do that? How in the world do you keep track of all these parts? And just listen and understand what they do. That goes a long, long way.
It does. And when we talk about food safety culture, this is where we start to integrate. When we are inserting ourselves in different areas of the business and we become that trusted resource, that's how we were building in the culture. We need that leadership support. And so speaking with your leadership, and sometimes it can be intimidating and sometimes you'll find that it's really not though.
No.
Because what you're saying is, hey, I'm here to help you with your business, right? I'm here to support you in your business in quality, food safety, customer trust, and putting out a good product. I think if, as a consumer, if I'm spending $39 a pound for a ribeye, I want it with a smile. I want it safe. I want it cold. And I want a high quality. So
absolutely,
I learned to speak in their terms. So
I think that's the great way to end our conversation today. Speak on their terms, not ours.
Yeah.
So a couple of things here, guys, is here's the link, as I promised here at the beginning, to the food court by DSG. So the brand new episode 3 dropping now.
Yes.
There we go. Also, thank you to my sponsors, so Culture Advisory Group and the risk assessment work we do up there. I will put a link in there as well. Part of this, and really what we're doing here, is in organizations, we're change men. We're the group that brings change within the organization. We're the ones that are finding better ways forward. And I think that's a fun thing, and it's very satisfying in what we do. And it's a good thing. So thank you, Michelle, for coming on the chat. I really appreciate having you on.
So much for having me. This has been great. Bucket list. So thank you.
Oh, you bet. And one of the things with first guests, the first time through, and I always warn when we do the prep call, is, oh my goodness, an hour is a long time. It flies, doesn't it? Absolutely flies.
And it flies even from a viewer. It flies. So yeah, it does. It flies either way. But yes, it went. I had a great time. Thank you, Brian.
Awesome. And thank you everyone for attending as well, and investing the time and improving your knowledge and hopefully getting a little bit out of what we talked about here today. But guess what? Food safety doesn't stop. Food safety doesn't care to this Christmas. If anything, we need to be paying more attention this time of year to food safety, because manufacturers, they're putting out a lot of product this time of year. So we need to pay extra attention. So we appreciate all that you do. And for that, of course, the Food Safety Chat is going to be here next Friday as well. So we will, again, live stream at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, where I will bring in another amazing food safety guest like Michelle onto the chat to have a conversation with you. So in the meantime, hopefully your shopping's pretty much all done. You're ready to go. You're going to have a nice stress-free weekend, and we'll do it all again next week. So enjoy, and we'll see you then.
Happy holidays. Thank you, everybody.